because where do I fall into place with this, especially with raising young Black women, young Black girls. And on top of that, my sister had passed the year before that, August 2019. And I brought my nephew down to stay with me. So now I have a young Black man that I'm raising. And when George Floyd was killed, we were actually on our way out of town when there was the first movement that I saw in Graham, I believe was in July of 2020. And there was a huge march, and I think it had to be about thousands of people had filled downtown. But it was the first time that I saw, literally, it was a side of the road was filled with Confederate flags, and the other side of the road was like the highway was filled of people of color, white people mixing together. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And my children was like, Mom, what is happening? We were on our way out of town, so I couldn't stop. But coming back from that, the next month, my daughter and my neighbor, her friend walked to the store, which was literally around the corner from my house. It wasn't something that they did all the time, but it was something that the store was close enough for them to walk, where I told them that they can always go. They just had to have a buddy system. Don't go by yourself. You always have to have somebody with you. Make sure you call, blah, blah, let me know you got there. Let me know you're on your way back home. Now back home in 10 minutes, I'm coming to look for you. So this particular day they had walked to the store, and my daughter called. And I'm thinking it's the regular call for her to let me know that they're leaving the store on the way back home. When I answered the phone, it was an officer from Graham, and immediately my heart dropped, because I'm like, why is an officer on the phone, on my daughter's phone? My heart dropped. It's just like, I just wanted to let you know first, your daughter's okay, but there was an incident. I'm like, where are you? I don't want to talk. I'm coming to where you are. Just like, oh, we're at the store around the corner. I left, I went down to the store, and come to find out that a lady was turning into the parking lot where the girls were walking away from the parking lot on the way back home. And the woman heard the girls talking, heard them laughing, and assumed that they were laughing and talking about her. How, I don't know. They're walking up the street, she's driving into a parking lot. And she whipped her car around, went up the street, made a U-turn, and came back down the road. Full blast, jumped the curve. The girls at this point had turned around and started running because they see that she's coming towards them. The car jumped the curve, running directly towards them. They ran behind a trash can, and had it not been like the big dumpster and a big white pickup truck in the parking lot, they would have been hit. There was an officer across the street at the light, the same officer that called, that saw this happen. And she wrote up the report. The lady, of course, left the scene. She was arrested later that night, but also released that same night that this happened. So they wrote up the charge with assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. And this is where I started to learn about Alamance County, because I was working and the detective would make visits to my home to talk to my daughter when I wasn't there. So mama mode snaps, I make phone calls. I'm like, don't ever come to my house without me being there. Don't talk to my children without me being there. And I guess he didn't like my tone or didn't like my mama beartude. So he, in part, along with the DA, decided that they were going to go ahead and handle the case how they saw fit. They made a deal with the lady behind our back. We never seen it. We never went to trial. When we were called into the office to actually go over how this was going to look when we go to court, they had already made the deal with her. They had already lessened the charge down to a misdemeanor. The intent to kill was wiped off because they hadn't been hit with the vehicle. And it was right at that time where I was like, you know what? this isn't going to fly for me at all. I was reached, Melanie Mitchell, my friend Melanie Mitchell. This is how we met. She reached out to me. They were doing a vigil, a candlelight vigil for George Floyd downtown in Graham. And she reached out to me because by this time, they had made, the stories. It was on the news. It had been reported. Several people had came out and did interviews. And she was like, hey, come on down and have a conversation, let you know that you have family here with us. And we came down, me and I think I took my daughters that night. I went out and I spoke. It was a vigil and it was at Wyatt Outlaw Park. And I don't know, it was in that moment was speaking and letting people know who I was and what happened to my daughter. But the love was so heavy. The love was so hard that the people that night became family. And I was moved at that point to forever continue to use my voice, to be heard in Graham, to be heard in Alamance, so that this doesn't continue to happen, so that the voice can be expelled and heard through other counties, through other places, through other states where this is happening. And it started off with that, but of course, it led into other things because we're still fighting against social injustice. We're still fighting against racism. And I started to look at Graham more at this time because it became even more apparent the racism that was in Graham, on top of the monument, on top of the business owners, the mayor, who's now the mayor, the business owners in Graham that had so many racist restaurants, places that you just did not feel welcome as a person of color, or even as a supportive person of color. If you weren't a person of color, you supported people of color, you felt the heat too when you came to Graham. And we started from there. We just continued to use our voice. October 31st, whew, Lord have mercy. I'm gonna try to get through this one. October 31st, we had already did several marches. We would go down in the evenings and just make our presence known, to hold space. And the police in Graham, between the Alamance County Sheriff's Office and the Graham Police Department, they were always ready for us. They were always ready for the crowd. They made so many ordinance changes in Graham because of our voice, because we weren't scared to stand on the street, because we weren't scared to walk, because we were lifting up the names of people who have been murdered by the police, unjustified murders, people who were getting away with murder. And because we chose to use our voice, they look for ways to take our voice away. They tried to limit the number of people that can be on the corner. They tried to limit the number of time we had to file papers if we wanted to got a stand. Like if we wanted to use our voice and have 20 people gather, they wanted us to file papers. And, it got to a point where I'm like, F your papers, F your ordinances, we're gonna go out here and we're gonna use our voice and we're gonna make noise. F12, that's exactly where it had got to. So by the time August the 31st came, they were already riled up. And Reverend Greg Drumwright came from Greensboro. They led the first march in that July, and it was fine. They had thousands of people that gathered, and it was fine. When we went down in October, the minute that we came around the corner, because we marched from up the street and we came around the corner, but the minute that we hit downtown Graham and we knelt down to pray, we had George Floyd's family with us, and we knelt down to pray. As soon as we got up off our knees, they were spraying the pepper spray, and it felt like it was a part of history for my ancestors that I was having to relive. There were children out there, 6-year-olds. There were elderly people out there. And normally when we would march or when we would hold action, there would be an area where the Confederates and neo-Nazis would be in Graham. And it would be off to the side around our White Outlaw Park, kind of in the corner by our courthouse. This particular day, they weren't present. They were, but they weren't where they normally were. You know, they had moved to another side, and then we found out later why, because they had been notified what was about to happen. The Graham Police Department and the Alamance County Sheriff's Office were ready for us. They had their arsenal. They were in the windows. The snipers were on the roof. And I left my kids at home intentionally that day because I knew in my heart that something was going to go wrong that day. And that was probably the worst day of activism in Graham, because that day definitely made national news everywhere. They sprayed, they had guns pointed at us. We were unarmed. They were like, it was a massacre without a death, if that makes sense. But they killed so many people emotionally. They killed so many people mentally. They killed the souls of so many people that day, because once they had us scattered, telling us to go to a certain area, but we had hundreds of people not knowing where to go. People who didn't know Graham. They didn't know where the area was for us to meet. And when we finally got to the meeting ground and we finally started the event, they came out again. And the pepper spraying started again. And at that point, it was just worse. Miss Janet Nesbitt, she was in a wheelchair. She had a seizure, and the people had to help her. They were still spraying. They're spraying. They're still pepper spraying over top of her. They're spraying in her face. They're spraying in people's eyes. Mind you, when they're supposed to spray anything like that, they're supposed to spray on the ground. But we clearly have videos, we clearly have pictures where they're spraying directly into people's faces. Everybody's crying. They're trying to find milk. They're trying to find things to help people be able to see so they can move to wherever, like get out of the way. I knew that day that I was going to die. I knew it. Like, I had never experienced anything like that in my life. But the whole point of the march that day was for us to go vote. We were exercising our right to go vote. And they did what they successfully set out to do. They stopped the hundreds of votes that should have been taken on that day. They should have been able to, march over to Graham, to the municipal building and get their vote in. They stopped that. I refused to let that happen. They pepper sprayed us all the way up the street as we were leaving. We were leaving and still being pepper sprayed up the street. So I continued to yell and I called people and I said, I'm still going to vote. I came here to vote. I'm still going to vote. I can't see. I'm choking and I'm still going to vote. And I marched my tail over to the municipal building. I put my vote in and left there to go to the jailhouse, to go to the jail to check on my comrades, because they had arrested so many people. So many people were hurt. They had arrested people. And I was like, let me go check on my comrades to see how everybody's doing. Get over to the jail. I was probably at the jail on the grounds for maybe 5 minutes. And I got my megaphone and I'm singing, we are ready. We ready. We ready for change. Arrested for singing a song. Arrested. taken in for, my charge was instigating a riot, starting a riot. Because according to them, the people, the inmates in the jail cell were getting rowdy. And it was our fault that they were getting rowdy. So it was a year and a half of people going to court for these charges. Failure to distribute, assault, starting riots, all for using our voice when they were the monsters. And it still didn't stop us. We came right back like 2-3 days later, heavier. We went from hundreds of people to over 1,000 people marching, continuing to use our voice, because if you let them take your voice, the truth will continue to remain silent. It is up to us to use our voice. It is up to us to rewrite what they want to expose as what they see as history. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want the textbooks to have the truth. And that's where we have to come into play and use our voice. We have to fight. We have to fight them in politics. We have to fight them in the streets. You have to fight. I think people get confused when it comes to elections. People, oh, I don't want to, excuse me, y'all go ahead, baby. My baby's grabbing her graham crackers. They don't want to vote because they think it doesn't matter. They think it doesn't matter and nothing's going to happen. But as you can see with what the Supreme Court has done just in the last week, your vote matters. Your vote is needed, and it's needed even more on a local basis in order to steer how everything goes on at the higher levels. You have to vote locally. And they know that, and they're scared of the turnout. They're scared of the changes, which is why they continue to fight us at every corner that we turn. But we have to continue to use our voice. And I still do. I mean, we haven't been as loud. There's been a lot of loss that I've endured since then. I remember, even with that charge being hung over my head for about a year, I was taking care of my mom, and I couldn't even apply for someone to come into the house for extra help outside of the nursing facility that was coming in from PACE. I couldn't apply for extra help because they had to do a background check on me because I was the applicant. And this charge was hanging over my head. And I still have to work to get it expunged because the arrest is still there. We had so many people that had to take pleas. And then finally, after Pastor Drumwright's charges were dropped, everyone else's charges who hadn't been completed yet, their charges were finally dropped. But there were so many people who took hits and now have records because of October 31st, when they were the monsters, they were the instigators, they are the terrorists. So it's important for us to continue to raise our voice. It's important for us to continue to fight. It's important for you to show up to your city council meetings, show up to your commissioner meetings, so you can understand what's happening in your community, so you can fight against the things that are going to affect you and your children. And that's just talking about Graham on that one day. And you can imagine what we go through on a daily basis. It got to a point where I moved my children out of Graham because it literally got to a point where police would ride by my house and my children had started to get scared. People would try to run me off the road. I had Martin Luther King quotes in the back of my truck, and I had my children with me one day, and we got ran off the road. And it's really because they're scared. But I don't want my children, I don't want the children of the community to be scared to ever use your voice. So I still continue to fight. I still wear my, like, I wish a Karen would, like I wish a Karen would shirts, like Black Lives Matter. And I'm grateful for my comrades that are here. I'm grateful for the people that, stand beside us, that stand with us, either on the ground or behind the scenes, because there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. And even if you're not capable to, put boots on the ground and run with us, there's still a lot of work that can be done. And I'm appreciative of that. But I'm still doing work. I'm organizing with Advanced Carolina right now, still doing some work in Alamance. And I started after the wounds and after the hurt and after the pain of October 31st, I started virtually. At first, it was a virtual point, like meetings called Invisible Wounds. And I named it Invisible Wounds because, we get up and we face every day. We go out with a mask on our face. The world is presented with the mask that we present the world with our mask. People don't see the pain. They see the smile. They don't see the struggle. And that's in general. People are hurting. They're grieving. They're struggling. The economy is horrible. And I started Invisible Wounds just for check-in purposes, to say, hey, I want to check on you to make sure you're okay. Whatever it is that you want to talk about, personal stuff, political stuff, activism. What is it that you need to get off your chest this week? So we would do weekly meetings of Invisible Wounds. And last year I was able to have a space where I started doing them in person. And, this was out of pocket. I'll make sure people who came were fed. We will come every Monday. What I loved was the amount of young people that would be involved. And that let me know that they were listening and that they had needs and that they had wants. And it was important for them to know that we were there for them. So unfortunately, I had my own personal stuff happen. Both vehicles, me and my fiance, Bryant, I think he's on here, baby, I love you. I think like my vehicle broke down at the beginning of the year. Then his vehicle broke down. We're like, okay, well, we can't have 2 car payments. Then we ended up getting another vehicle. That vehicle just broke down. So like, it's been a struggle, like trying to get things back in place for me to have these in-person meetings. But Invisible Wounds is still there. I'm still a phone call away for people to call and talk. And anybody who was a part of it or anybody who's ever reached out to me about anything knows what comes to me stays with me. It's a safe space. Invisible Wounds is a safe space. What we talk about, it remains within the invisible wounds. We don't spread other people's pain out to anyone. So that's another thing that's been done in the community. I have people reach out to me for Light of Alamance is what I actually started when I called it what I called the organization, right? I started Light of Alamance because it's so dark in Alamance. The pain is so heavy in Alamance. And I just wanted to be a light, and I have people that come and, hey, my lights are about to get cut off. I don't have food. I'm about to be evicted. And I reach out to my community. And this is why I know I have built love and trust in the community, because I can post and say, hey, I have a community need of such and such and such and such. And we'll do our best to raise the money. We were able to help a teenage sister who was pretty much raising her teenage brother who were homeless. And we got them into an apartment and things like that. It's why I continue to do the work that I do, because the community needs something all the time. People are hurting. And to have the love of my community be able to give to people that they don't even know, just on my word, means a lot.
Faith, I think I speak for so many on this call that your words, your experience, so powerful. And you mentioned light, and I just want to, the feeling I get is just light upon light. The work that you're doing, and any of us who have stood up, whether in a public space, like in a protest, to police, to violence, and met with tear gas and mace, know that the experience is life-changing, and without a doubt, it has changed your life. So I just want to pause for a quick second, say a couple of things real quick. See if I didn't mention when we got on the call that I serve as one of the two co-directors of the Truth Telling Project, and Dave, the other co-director, has gotten on this call. And I want to pause for just a moment to see if he would like to speak. He's a little under the weather, not feeling well. And then I want to turn it back over to Rachel to see if you'd like to facilitate questions and comments. But before we do any of that, I just want to mention to those on the call that the Truth Telling, the Radical Truth Teller Award, as a result of a generous grant we received, has enabled us to give financial support for the Truth Tellers. And we also promote the Radical Truth Tellers fundraising for you for the month of July. So I want to encourage all of you, or you, Faith, to put in the chat how people can reach you, what your money baskets are, where you can receive, Venmo, cash, Zelle, PayPal, whatever it is. Please do put that in the chat, and let me I just want to bring all of your attention, to folks on the call, to the powerful comments. If anybody has any questions or want to say anything more about that, but let me see if Dave, who is on this call, would like to jump in and welcome you, and see if he's got anything to say. Dave, calling you in.
I just wanted to congratulate you for just the powerful organizing that you've done. I'm basically getting over my first bout of COVID, but honoring just your work. I wanted to come and listen to your work, and congratulations again. And I want to encourage everybody to Venmo Faith, and it's really hard to do this work. And this award is to support organizers while we are here. And Faith, if you could put your personal Venmo, or however you want to be supported, even if it's to you, people should just Venmo you. You deserve it. And we don't get a chance to honor Black women organizers in this moment, and we should. And I want to honor you, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And we're behind you. Truth Telling Project is with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. And Rachel, I want to turn it over to you. If you'd like to field any questions, comments, back to Faith.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that story. I always love the way you tell stories, Faith. It's just so captivating. So I just appreciate your storytelling. I know, like, a lot of the people that there's a lot of people that were there on this call now. So definitely I'm just happy to see all of you, and just thanks for coming on. And I know it's hard to recall a lot of these things that happened to us because it's a lot of trauma. It just really is, and it's not easy. But I want to take the time now to open the space up for any comments or questions. I'm going to selfishly kind of insert myself here right now. I have just a comment and a question. A lot of the time, the space that we would gather in when we were in Graham was a place called Wyatt Outlaw Park, and that was a very significant place. Faith did a video recently explaining why it was significant, and I would like to give her the space to talk about that, if you'd like, just why that there.
I learned about Wyatt Outlaw Park, you know, coming into, I didn't know anything about it until I started doing movement in Graham, and come to find out that Wyatt Outlaw was the first Black constable, city council in Graham. And he was hung in Graham by the KKK. And it just goes to show you that you can serve your community as a person of color and they will still hang you, you know. And we gathered there because it was a symbolism of what we were fighting for, what we continued to fight for. And of course, they tried to make us move from that space several times, but that was our gathering space. That was our collective power. That's where we started building a lot of collective power. And my brother Adon, you know, the night that he was in Graham and was arrested, that's when I started learning more about revolutionary love, what revolutionary love looked like. And we have to keep in mind that people like Wyatt Outlaw Park, like people like Wyatt Outlaw is why we do the work that we do, you know. And we tried to get them to change the name to Wyatt Outlaw Park. And of course they weren't having it. That doesn't mean that we won't continue to fight for that, because it's necessary.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments for Faith? Like, again, I know a lot of y'all were there on the 31st of October, so any comments you want to contribute?
Sorry, Miss Sandy said they ring the bell there too to overpower the good words being said in that square. Yeah, they would ring the bell and they removed it. The bell was, they later removed the bell. They tried to drown out our voices. You know, there are a lot of comrades here that stood with us. People that went to city council meetings, commissioner meetings, that were assaulted. Ms. Beth was assaulted by the police. My brother Sean Haku was assaulted by the police, you know, on site. Like, they would come for us on site. And I can still go to Graham and they were like, there are a lot of officers who know us by name. They had a list. They had a list of who we were and tried to intimidate us. And there was a lot of people that it worked for, that became scared. But I implore you to use your voice, you know, to still fight against the injustice. Because if not, they win. And if they win, nothing changes. And nothing changes, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will still continue to grow up in a county, in a town where it's still sundown. And that's sad to me.
I see that Bryant's hand is up. Did you want to make a comment or a question?
Sure. First, it's great to be with all of you. Thank you for being here to support my baby. Unlike Faith, I am born and raised in Alamance County. So I've been dealing with all of the things she laid out my entire life. I grew up in East Burlington, which is a stone's throw from Graham. And coming up as a child, I dealt with negative interactions all the time with Graham and with the police there. it got to the point where my parents did not allow us to go to Graham, even though we had friends at Graham 2 miles away. And when I became a teenager and could drive, we had to bypass Graham and we would go hang out in Greensboro. We were just simply not allowed to. Just not because my parents were afraid for our safety. They weren't afraid of speaking out, but it was more or less avoid this because we know what will happen in that space. And they were worried about their children. So yeah, all those things she laid out were things we've had to deal with. And now it's been like even more so in recent years with all the things that have happened across the country. So all of the things you hear that she does now that's just a small snippet of all the work she's done on the ground with people with healing. And the part that people never hear is she's also an amazing mother. She models. The girls do cheer. The boys do sports. She's still home almost every evening to cook and do all the motherly fiance things that she does, because both of us have crazy schedules, crazy travel, and she does it all seamlessly and still remains beautiful while she does it. I don't know how. I'm halfway a wreck with my schedule. I don't know how she pulls it all together. But yeah, that's the side that people don't get to see, is that softer side while being a superwoman out in public. And we can still have talks, still do what we need to do. And I know when we get ready to go out those doors, she's gonna fight with me as hard as anybody else. So that's the part that I don't want people to miss. And we actually met through this work, because as she started getting out in Graham and doing these things, and when we did the big march in July before October, I was one of the organizers of that. And we were always around each other. And I was like, who is this little short, loud woman? Like, and the more I listened, the more I was intrigued. And, it was just like, I didn't know it then, but as I was in like 2 or 3 meetings around her. And it was just something I was like, I got to get to know who this person is. And then it was like I fell in love. She had something go on and she had lost some stuff in her house. And I bought her a vacuum cleaner and took it to her. And ever since, she's been mine. So that $100 was the best investment I have ever made. And I would do it 1,000 times over. But no, intelligent, just wonderful all the way around. And I could not do the work that I do if I did not have that backbone behind me. And I love when I get the opportunity to step back and let her light be the one, and I can just be in the audience and cheer her on. I love doing that part. So this is amazing and well-deserved. And all the people that I see on the call that I know well, that know me well, that support you. I love all of you all too. You guys know I love all of y'all. Gary and Sandy, we got to come for a visit soon. But yeah, you have all of us behind you. So I'm looking forward to the next several years of what you will do and what we will do. And yeah, I'm here for all of it.
Thank you.
It. And I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, I love it. Okay, y'all, we have about 10 more minutes on the call. It's been wonderful. I've loved it. I could be here all night. It's amazing. Does anybody else have any more questions, comments, or anything else they'd like to say? And
I will say that, and I told Red this is going to happen, and I told Red what my plans were. So I'm very excited. Some people knew what my dream was for Alamance following October 31st for the work that I wanted to do, which is why I kind of started doing the work with under Light of Alamance. And I will always post and was like, one day, y'all, one day I'm going to be able to let y'all, I'll be able to apply for grants, and the people that help me, I'm gonna be able to give y'all a tax write-off for being able to assist with helping the people in the community that come to me that need help. And y'all I want y'all to say a prayer for me tonight. With the award, with the stipend that came with the award, I only felt in my heart, the award came from me doing the work in the community. And I felt like it was only right for me to give back to the community. Again, it was like, well, why don't you just, use whatever your award is going to be for yourself? But the way for me to do that is for me to give back to the community. So I filed my articles of organization today. This has been in the works for a while. I filed my articles of organization today. I have my EIN and I submitted for my 501c3 for Light of Element. So the people that continue to actually work with me and to help people, now I can apply for grants to be able to help more people, more of my neighbors in Alamance and the surrounding counties. And I'm grateful for that. And it's because of you all that I'm able to do that. And I'm thankful for that.
That's amazing, Faith. I'm always proud of you. I never know what you're going to do next, but I love it. I love it. And it's just, that's why we do what we do. We just know that there's people in the community that are just worthy of having their voices heard and worthy of just being uplifted. And that's what we wanted to do. And I just really am honored to have shared this space with you and just all the pretty traumatic times we've had in Alamance County. It was traumatic, but I really am just happy to be here with you and everybody who was there, on this call. And even if you weren't, just thanks for coming and supporting. And do you have any other words, Melinda, before we close out?
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Red, Rachel, for bringing to us, and by the way, we love working with Rachel, the Truth Telling Project. Just want to shout out to you appreciation for the folks that you've brought to our attention. For those of you who may not know about the Truth Telling Project was founded on the streets about 8 years ago after the murder of Mike Brown Jr. And after calling in organizers, local organizers, organizers from around the nation and academics who are engaged in peacemaking work, restorative justice work, the Truth Telling Project was born for the purpose of amplifying the voices of individuals and family members who experienced police violence. And we've moved and to bring healing to those experiences, to those hearts. But in a nation where the killing continues and the injustice is rampant on our streets, the disease of racism is eroding away the social fabric of this nation. We realize that the healing is going to need more than just telling the story. And we've moved into the reparations work and working with communities, doing deciding for themselves how, and how they see reparations done in their communities, and engaging folks at the municipality level with thinking about creating truth and reconciliation commissions, as was done in Rwanda and South Africa and other parts of the world, learning the lessons and applying them for what's appropriate for this particular nation at this particular time. So that's who the Truth Telling Project is. That's what we do in supporting both policy, organizing, and teaching about reparations and people coming forth to tell their stories. So that brings us to the last few minutes of our call. Again, congratulations to you, Faith.
Thank you.
And if anybody has any final comments, questions, even about the Truth Telling Project, if you can be in touch with Rachel, you can go to our website, send us, myself or Dave, an email. Anything you want to know about the Truth Telling Project. We offer courses, on reparations. It's a 5-week course that communities, faith-based communities have been taking online. And we also do some restorative justice in communities. So this is not a pitch for us. This is all about you, Faith Cook.
No,
I
I
just
wouldn't be
wanted
here
to
without
share a
y'all.
little bit about who we are.
Thank you.
So let me just look at the last final comments here. Such incredible comments. I hope you just cut and paste these comments, and on those blue days when we're feeling a little down, pull up your Zoom comments for a little boost.
Yeah, I was like, I really need to, like, is there a way to do the whole thing? Like,
There it is. I sadly have to jump off of this call and prepare. Iowa City happens to be one of the communities. We're partnering with a couple of other organizations to do a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I think I also want to mention that we have a toolkit for people interested in doing truth-telling work in public or even private settings in homes. And you could reach out to Rachel for more information about that. And we'd love to see you all again. And again, congratulations, Faith.
thank you so much. Thank you all so much for coming. I love you. Mwah. All right, power to the people. Okay? And because y'all know what? The people united can never be defeated. Y'all know how it goes.
And can you
Yep,
close
yep.
us out with that song you
Yes,
shared
of course,
earlier,
of
please?
course, of course, of course. All right, my baby's here.
My baby
All
girl.
All right, boy, y'all. Y'all take yourselves off of mute and come on and sing with me. Y'all go out the right way, the way we do this. We ready. We ready. We ready for change. We ready for what we ready for what we ready for change. The people united will what?
Never be
Never be
defeated.
Never,
defeated.
ever, ever, ever,
Have a little
ever be
shared
defeated.
love. I love y'all. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Great to see
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much, y'all. Good night.
Bye.
Right.